Okay. Hey, conservatives of Texas. It says, what does it say here? StreamYard has lost access to your Facebook account. Click here to reconnect. Hold on a second, Taylor. It's going to reconnect. Okay. Gotcha. Beautiful. Hey, listen, sorry about that, guys. So, Conservatives of Texas here on location at La Fiesta Grande here on Ross Street. We decided to do something different. We're going out on location and kind of trying to stimulate traffic in our respective communities. As you can see, Taylor is at a venue out there. What's the name of that establishment, sir?
So I'm at the social space on the south side of Fort Worth, and I'm actually in the groom suite. So they have a big event space out here where people come, they get married, they throw events. And so, yeah, I'm in the groom suite over here at the social space.
Hey, it looks really nice there. How long has that place been around in the community? Has it been
it's been here forever, but they recently renovated it and now offering it up, for rent. But it's been here forever.
Well, good. Well, you guys make sure and get out there in his area and meet the folks over there. I know they're fine people over there. So one thing I do want to discuss is we are having here in Amarillo on April the 11th, a forum for our candidates. And the April 11th forum is going to be specifically for our place 1 through 4 for city council. And then that's going to be at Accelerate Church at 4400 South Crockett. And so make sure to get to that. That's going to begin at 6:30 p.m. And also the week after, we're going to have another forum at the Amarillo Botanical Gardens at the same time. That's going to be April 18th, and that's going to be specifically for the mayoral. Okay, so how important is local politics there, Taylor?
Incredibly important. In fact, we have elections coming up May 6th, and we have got a slew of city council members. We have 30 city council candidates, going for 11 spots. And of course, we have our mayoral election, and there are a few candidates, going for that as well. But it's incredibly important. And I'm sure you know this. We're trying to get people to realize just how important it is, because your local officials have more impact on your life than federal. And so we're really trying to kind of change the trajectory of that and get people to realize, you got to get out and vote, because turnout is so low here. It really is.
Yeah, we have certain precincts here that they hit about 16-17%, which is really high. Yeah. But the embarrassing thing is we're supposed to be the most reddest county in Randall County in the whole entire nation. So 16%. I mean, yeah, it's great for places like Fort Worth or whatnot, but as far as like here, we're supposed to be the echelon of the echelon. So I just kind of wanted to go over just a few of those housekeeping details on some things that are happening here locally. And I thank you, Taylor, for announcing what's on as well. And I really appreciate you coming on a Friday night. So thank you so much. Tonight's show, it's really kind of a tough topic, because we don't want to create some type of, we're not going to speak in innuendos in any shape, form, or fashion. I don't want people to receive it in that way, but it is a conversation that has to be discussed. It's almost, you've heard the term, Taylor, before. It's a come to Jesus, situation. And I wanted to discuss something that occurred to me here recently, and I spoke with Taylor about it a couple of days ago, and he was bouncing off a little bit of some things there, and it really coalesced with what I was seeing over there. And I went to Denver, Colorado over the last weekend, and I attended a local church that was across the street from the hotel. Beautiful church, Taylor. It was built in 1888, and it was a beautiful castle-like structure. I mean, it was, you can only imagine. I mean, it was just beautiful. I'll share a picture on here when we're done. Got in there. They have a huge, magnificent organ. I mean, like you see in the movies. And they had a choir. Everything was great. Everything was wonderful. The seats were made out of wood. They had stained glass, beautiful stained glass. Sat there. Everything was good. And then out of nowhere, all of a sudden, I seen how the message was coming out, and you could tell that they were trying to be relevant to the culture, to the surrounding of how our society is today in certain facets. And, in the Word, it speaks that we're supposed to be set apart. You know what I mean? We're supposed to be the example and set apart, not be camouflaged, sucked into the echo chamber, if you will, or the vacuum. And so I was a little grieved over it, and I started to look at some things on the internet as I was there, and they were speaking about this huge church split in the United Methodist Church. And I didn't know about it. I had never heard of that. But, I think that's occurring all across the nation, not just isolated to the Methodist Church. I see that happening across the country. And so when we were discussing what we were talking about earlier in the week, you mentioned that there's some things that you noticed that were kind of, of a similar sort. What was it that you seen in your proxy?
Yeah, so I'll preface this with, I'm a meat and potatoes kind of guy. When I go to church, I want to hear something that's going to challenge me, that's going to make me, look within myself and think, okay, God, I know that I can do this better, or, I'm going to bring this to you and confess, and, you're going to help me get on this path again. And everything the church that I had been kind of trying to figure out which one was my home. It was so superficial, it was, believe it and you can achieve it. Think your way to wealth. And I'm just like, what is this? And, looking back, it's like, this has been a very slippery slope. The church has been silent on a lot of issues, important social issues, and issues that our founding fathers are literally rolling over in their graves. And the church has been silent. And so for me, I just noticed a very superficial kind of, you're good, God loves you, all right, see you next Sunday, and nothing to really make you sit down and think, wow, or think about the holiness of God and how big and great he is. And that's what I've been searching for in a church for a while now,
Yes, of course. And I can certainly understand that as a meat and potatoes type of individual. I mean, you want to get in there, you want to get the course meal and know how to apply it and know how to cook it later on down the road. You know what I mean? And it just seems like there's no application. It's just, hey, here's the ingredients, here's what it tastes like, and we're not going to teach you how to cook it like they used to back in the, turn of the century. It was more hands-on and things like that. So do you see the result of that really cascading across? I mean, let's just start with our education, our school system. You see the things that they're teaching in schools, all the materials in these books. I mean, I'm of the opinion that it is a direct result of we're not having this meat and potatoes type of situation. How come it's become so taboo, in your opinion, to even mention Jesus or Christianity in the schoolhouse anymore? Because if you do your due diligence in the history of the schoolhouse, the main reason kindergarten was ever even created was to teach the Bible, right? I mean, you have Princeton, you have Yale, you have Harvard. All those are seminary, and so kindergarten itself, if if you read the history, it was established to teach the young children the foundation of the holy word of God. And now you look at these schools, and I'm not knocking schools, Taylor, by any means. What I'm saying is something has occurred, and that's something that you're talking about, the slippery slope, if I'm hearing you correctly, of where we're heading. The same slippery slope that occurred 50, 60 years ago as to where we're at now, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I'll say it's hard to understand it, I think, in human terms. I think that we have to keep going back and looking at this through a spiritual lens, because it's a spiritual battle, and since day one, the enemy has been trying to get a hold of this nation. And if you can get a hold of the kids, that's huge. You can, turn the course of history. And I think that that's what's happened. We become very to things. We're out of school, and that was huge. I think that was a huge, starting point with the downfall. And then you look at what we entertain ourselves with and what we're distracted with, and this moral decline that we're seeing. It's directly the result of all of these other issues that we're experiencing. So it's I can't explain it in human terms. You just can't. It is a spiritual issue that we're facing, and it's global at this point. So that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I certainly do. And I know that here, as far as kids returning back to school after the pandemic and whatnot, a lot of them decided just to stay home and do the homeschooling. Did y'all kind of get that kind of same residual effect?
Oh yes, yeah, and we've got two camps right now: the for school choice and then the anti-school choice. And what I've noticed is people from both camps, they're just throwing their hands up and they're homeschooling their kids. We're seeing micro schools pop up here in local community schools, neighborhood schools. Teachers want to be a part of the system, having 12 kids and their parents sending their kids over there, or having the teacher come to their house. And I know it's different and weird, but I kind of love it, because this goes back to kind of our earliest form of education, in conjunction with what you were saying, when the neighborhood was so invested in the school and you knew what your kids were being taught. And we're kind of reverting back to that. At least that's what I've seen here in Fort Worth.
I see. And is the number the same when it comes to per student? I know here it's somewhere around $6,700. I mean, have y'all ever looked at that number per student?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Fort Worth spends a lot of money per student. It's well over 6,000. I don't know the number, but I know it's pushing towards 10,000 plus per student. And it's funny, because I was looking the other day at statistics on this. There are schools in Chicago that spend almost $50,000 per pupil. And I mean, these are some of the worst schools in the nation. So it's not a matter of money. It's a matter of morality, I think. And a fish rots from the head. You're talking about the Department of Education and what's coming out of there. And we just got to get back on track, I think, spiritually more than anything.
Well, it's a domino effect, and it's a one hand washes the other type of situation. Taylor, when you say the fish rots from the head, I mean, that's the first I've ever heard that. I don't know if there's a Fort Worth thing or what, but that's pretty good. Here in Texas, or at least in Amarillo, and you guys probably deal with the same thing. I mean, when we try to get some accountability, we're told to call the TEA. Then the TEA tells us, well, no, that's in your own local, and you just get bounced around like a ping pong, you know what I mean? So it gets a little frustrating, and sometimes I wonder if it's designed that way, to get you frustrated and whatnot. But, for folks out there that are going to be watching this, know that you have every right. The Constitution says what, Taylor? It says there is no taxation without representation, right? So you have every right to be represented, and if you're not, get out there and I don't even know if I'd go to a school board meeting because sometimes those are designed just to fatigue you. They last forever. I would say get on the horn, not on the horn, but on the email. Start to email folks and get some correspondence going, and then get out in your community and share that information. Have a town hall. Have a town hall. Invite the school board to your meeting, right, Taylor? How about them apples? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Your board meeting, if you will. And, I don't like to use the word demand. I mean, that gets thrown around there a little bit, but I would say expect answers. And if you don't get those answers, go to your representation in your in Congress, and they need some legs or some meat on the bone that they can work with. And so, back to our topic, you mentioned the word a little while ago, and I think it's very suiting and not suiting but fitting, battleground. Something that I noticed across the country is that these factions of entities that are creating these Marxist moves, if you will, they don't create their own buildings. They go in and try to take out already fortified buildings, such as the one I spoke of in Denver. I believe it is exactly what you just said. It's a battleground, and they're trying to remove on purpose these fortified, already established structures, because those places have been ordained by Christ in the very beginning, and I really believe it is indeed a battlefield. What do you think about that? I mean, do you think there's anything there?
Oh yeah, 100%. Because think about it, you go to war, what's your number one objective, or at least one of the top, is to gain territory, right? And so, and whether that be spiritually or physically, they're coming after our churches, and so I think that's a very good connection, or that you're able to make. That may help people understand, when you see these churches that have been established for hundreds of years, next thing you know, they're gone, quote unquote woke, and they're preaching a gospel that is not from the Bible. That's territory gained by the enemy. And you see it in our schools as well. And you mentioned, our earliest schools being places where you would learn spiritual foundations. Well, they've gained that territory. And so it's, I think if we can put it into perspective of a battle, it helps people understand, this is, we're going to try to take this territory back, and we've got to win our churches. We've got to win our schools back. We've got to win, I would go as far to say our government institutions. Don't let anybody argue that this country was not founded on Christian doctrine or principles, because it 100% was. You read that Constitution and you will see a thread that runs all the way through it that was divinely inspired. And, there are scholars out there that can pull examples left, right, but this idea that we Christian helps the enemy gain territory. And so we really got to do our due diligence and be aware of what's going on. So yeah, I think that connection is there for sure.
Yes, indeed. And, I want folks out there to really research the Zen Education Project. Have you heard of that, Taylor, at all? Yeah, when you have some time, look into that. It's Howard Zen is who it is. And Howard Zen is an ultra Marxist. And he has an organization, and they go after teachers, specifically getting them to take pledges to tell the truth. It's a semantic. They're spinning that. What they're really saying is to not follow any legislation that has been implemented teaching CRT and things of that nature. And we want folks to understand, or at least I do. I'm going to speak for me on the CRT situation. Guys, don't be fooled. It's not about anything. We're all a race. You're a race. I'm a race. The critical race theory aspect of the wording of it isn't about race. It's about an agenda. And if you're African American or if you're Hispanic, I'm Hispanic, Don't believe the mess, because it is not about us. It's not about you. It's about exploiting us, getting our energy to get out there and pump that fist up and do things of some sort to move the needle for the liberal left agenda. Because you have to ask yourself, if it was really spawned and instituted by us, then why have we always been stymied in years past, in decades past? We've never been able to get out of Chicago, or whatever the case is, how the Rainbow Coalition was formulated. When we tried to do that over there in Chicago with the Rainbow Coalition, if you look at the history, it was shut down by Mayor Daley, quick, fast, and in a hurry. And a lot of people don't know that the Black Panthers in Chicago actually, Taylor, campaigned for a Republican. that's
Wow.
a true story. And he won. And then right after that, the identity politic play came into effect, and the rest is history with identity politics. And so I want folks out there to know, black and brown folks, that CRT stuff, they're just exploiting us. Latinx,
Yes.
all that stuff, it's exploiting us, and they're using black and brown folks to push their agenda. Please do your homework. Zen Education Project, and what their goal is, Taylor, is to get about 8,850 teachers to take this pledge, basically to disobey any legislation. And guess what that is? Legislation is law. How does any school board say that that's okay for a teacher to take that pledge?
Right.
We have one here. We have two. We have two in the area, and if we have two in the most reddest area in Texas and the nation, how many does Fort Worth possibly have? How many does Dallas possibly have? And so back to the meat of our topic here with the battleground and whatnot. That's part of it. That's how they start to gain more and more ground. They get into people's minds, push the emotional social learning aspect of it, get your feelings involved in that actual facts and truth. So have you heard of the social emotional learning over there on that end? Have you heard that term before? I think you froze a little bit.
Yeah. Sound's going in and out a little. Can you hear me? Am I good?
Yes. Have you heard of that social emotional learning at all over there?
Oh yeah, 100%. And it goes right in the same with the critical race theory. So just quickly, going back to what you said, people seem to think CRT is just all about teaching the history of slavery, and that could not be further from the truth. Really, it is trying to get our kids to see the world, to see it through a lens of oppression and oppressor, or oppressed and oppressor, and that's what it is. And the thing about it, they'll tell you, teach it something. It's not a cool take, or they're giving kids. It goes through every subject. It's a pedagogy. It's a language. It's how they phrase a math problem. It'll be a simple math problem about a black child has this many things, a white child has this many things. What's the difference between the things that they have? And I mean, I've seen some of these problems, and they're just like, it's so transparent, but not to an impressionable kid. And so that's why you have to be really, vigilant. And the left, or the enemy, it's all about inversion. They invert things. So from the words that we use that now we can no longer say because they're bad, to a man becoming a woman, it's the inversion. That's what the enemy does. And so just keep your eyes open for things like that, because you'll see it everywhere. Emotional learning goes, again, they tie it up, building character, wonderfully positive things for kids. But really it's an invasion of privacy. You know, they're asking kids if your parents have guns at home. And if you ever leave the house angry, well, okay, what 12-year-old doesn't leave the house angry sometime? Or, you know, they're trying to get in to these minds of these kids and to separate them from their parents and, you know, literally make them wards of the state, honestly. So it's, but here's the thing too, people are waking up to this. I have heard this conversation happen so many times from people who I never thought, you know, would have a conversation like this. So there's a plus, you know, this whole lockdown pandemic thing, it woke a lot of people up. People are awake, and more people are awakening every single day. So, you know, there's that, you know, we've got going for us.
Yeah, it was anytime the enemy tries to take 2 steps forward, it's like, you know, the word says that God sits back and he just laughs at it, you know, and they always seem to stumble over their feet. You know, this situation with getting kids to be at home with their parents, it had a lot of follow-up. They were talking, they were discussing things. The teachers were calling the homes. They were all kind of in the same little bubble, and it kind of worked out and worked against the powers that be, you know what I mean, out there that were trying to do some things. You know, the left always says, don't never let a good crisis, you know, go to waste. And I seen that they were trying to really capitalize on a lot of issues, a lot of things, and it really backfired on them because it caused the family unit to really become the nuclear situation that they fight against, and the patriarch and things of that nature.
Yeah.
It really backfired on them, you know. And so know this, they're going to adjust. They will adjust. They always do. I wanted to read this, and my background noise, does this help if I lower this a little bit? Is that better, or is that, what do you think?
It kind of sounds the same.
Okay. You know, trying to do this on location thing to stimulate the neighborhood, I think it's a good idea, but I need to find a separate room next time around. But I wanted to read this. Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's good people are out, you know, economy's getting back up and going.
That's right. That's a good positive way to look at it. I wanted to read this real quick. And am I flowing okay as I'm talking? And stop me if it's jumbly or whatever the case is. It's titled number 2 in 2022, The Decline in Church Attendance in COVID America. Can you hear me okay? Mm-hmm. This is by Wendy Wang at Wendy R. Wang. She writes for IFS. It says here, and I'm only going to read a paragraph. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Editor's note, with nearly 20,000 page views, our second most read blog post of the year is this January 2022 research brief from Wendy. A recent poll by Pew Research Center shows that the U.S. Christian population has been declining steadily in the past decade. Today, 63% of Americans describe themselves as Christians, down from 75% just a decade ago. The share of Americans who identify with non-Christian faith, 6%, holds steady, but the share of secular Americans is set up by a 10 percentage point from a decade ago. So it's steadily going down. And I do know that I heard a number about a month and a half ago as far as people that not only they didn't go back to school, but a lot of folks didn't go back to church, you know. And I can tell you here locally, we had our leadership pass Home Depot, pass Lowe's, pass Walmart, and go to the churches and ask them to respectfully shut down for 2 weeks. And I thought to myself, oh, which part? How about now? Better? Am I frozen or now? I'm okay?
No, you're good.
Sorry, guys. Okay, sorry, guys. So here locally, when it came to church attendance and people not going back, I'll tell you that our leadership in this city was okay with passing Home Depot, Lowe's, um, Walmart, and things of those big box stores and whatnot in high traffic and high volume areas to go directly to a church or to all the churches and suggest, for the good of the city, shut down, close your doors for 2 weeks. Well, that 2 weeks turned into 2 months. That 2 months turned into 6 months, to a year, to 2 years. And I was always fascinated as to how they passed all these other businesses that are busy every single day, and the church is only, full Sundays and, some Wednesdays for some, but it is nothing comparable to Home Depot and these other businesses. And why do you think that was? I mean, we heard the nightmares of Gavin Newsom saying things like, if you're going to go to church, you can't sing, you can't be thinking that's what you do at church. It's an assembling, you know what I mean? So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think that there was an agenda there?
I mean, I think so. I mean, we can go all the way back to the American Revolution, right? And there's a saying that says the American Revolution started in churches and in taverns and in the public square. And what did they shut down first? At first it was, taverns, and it was, public gatherings, but then they came for our churches, and I've said this before, but, tyranny is going to take whatever and so and I'm not saying everybody, because, here's the deal. When it first happened, at least for me, there was a period I was nervous. I was scared. We had never done anything like this before. Surely there were pastors out there that had no idea what to do. And so, we take direction from the government because, they're the government. But after a while, like you said, when we saw Home Depot opening, but mom and pops had to stay closed, when we saw bars opening, but you're not allowed to go to church, that's, for me, was like, okay, I'm done with this. And I think what was disheartening for me is to see not enough church done. And some lessons, because they'll try, they're going to try again, I think.
Yeah, I believe so. And they just adjust, as to taking a different approach, So I do want to say, I think we're flowing really good, and we could go on for the next 30 minutes with no problem, but we are getting a little choppy. I don't know what's going on here, but I don't know if it's because the traffic is getting a little more busier, and that's good. I mean, it's a good thing that they are, but I want us to, okay, he got knocked off. I will say that we are going to continue this conversation. I believe that it's something that needs to be discussed in more length, so we can definitely see what's coming, smell the rain before it gets into our, proxy the next time around. So, concerning Texas, well, here he is. Here, let me get him back there. No, you're good. What I was saying is just, we definitely want to continue this conversation. I think it's getting a little busier here. And I guess everyone's on their cell phones and whatnot, so possibly that's causing something with the network, and that's okay. I wanted to give it a gander. It was something I wanted to try, and you know what I think I'll try to do next time, Taylor, is I'll try to do this on on a slow day, like a Tuesday evening. I think that'll be best. We'll try that next time. What do you think? not this Tuesday, but another like a different time period, but on a Tuesday or something like that. You know what I mean?
That sounds great.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. I really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Yeah.
And you have a good rest of the evening. And I'll get a hold of you, and we'll get the next one going. Okay.
All right.
Bye, guys. See ya.